TV dinners. Oh, those were the absolute best. With only 98 cents, you could get yourself a tray of frozen turkey, gravy, cornbread stuffing, sweet potatoes, and buttered peas. All you need to do is heat it up for a bit, and there you go. Dinner served. And the best part? There are no dirty dishes afterwards. Yes, just trash it away in the bin and you're good to go. Tell me that doesn't sound better than a back massage. But there's more to this delicious foil-covered aluminum tray of happiness than what meets the eye. It's a long history of innovation, brawl of ownership, rebranding, and a long run down the slope. Want to find out more about your favorite childhood dinner tray? Grab some chips and let's get cooking. The origin. Think of inventions like cars, planes, light bulbs, and refrigerators. The frozen TV dinner is just another great human invention that completes that list. Except that, like other inventions mentioned, this one actually struggles with identifying who its real owner or inventor is. For instance, Gilbert and Clark Swanson of the Swanson brand claimed they invented the TV dinner in 1953, but our history books prove otherwise. So let's see how this great invention of frozen dinners actually came about. It all started just 10 years earlier in 1944, when a guy named William L. Maxon, a pretty well-known inventor from New York, stumbled upon the idea of packaging a whole frozen meal. But birthed the idea? Well, William had cultivated cauliflowers on his land, and when it came time to harvest, he realized, well, this might just be too much than I need. So instead of wasting it, he acted upon what he could only think of at the moment: season it, cook it, and freeze it. Apparently, he only remembered about it again 1 year later. Yes, you heard that right. I bet you can say he really did have lots of options, and electricity was pretty great in his time. So, a year later, he defrosted and reheated it, took a bite, and to his surprise, it was as good as the day he cooked it. Well, it's cauliflower, so that might not sound too impressive, but you get the idea. Now, Maxon, being the inventor he was, got inspired by this experiment and decided to create a frozen meal that not only looked good, but tasted great too. He came up with this neat concept of a single-serving meal, with meat and veggies neatly set and separated in a round glossy paper tray about 12 inches wide, covered with a paper lid. But here's the thing, Maxon wasn't considering selling these ready-made meals to the public. In fact, he only took his invention to the private sector, just doing his thing and always on the lookout for the next big idea. Journey to the military. So, Maxon had this brilliant idea for frozen meals, and guess who he pitched it to? The Navy. They were all in, because, aircraft carriers are pricey, and having cheap, compact meals sounded like a win. No more mystery canned meat for the enlisted staff on Naval Air Transport Service aircraft. Now they had hot meals that tasted good, like steak, meatloaf, beef stew, corned beef hash, ham steak, or breaded veal cutlets with veggies or hot bread. Maxon called them Maxon Sky Plates. To heat these bad boys up, Maxon came up with the Maxon Whirlwind Oven, a nifty convection oven that could warm up 6 sky plates at once. Later, he upgraded it to handle a whopping 120 frozen meals at a time for the U.S. War Shipping Administration's merchant vessels. But here's the real kicker. Maxon teamed up with Pan America Airways to serve the same military meals to regular civilian passengers. The buzz about this revolutionary invention spread like wildfire, and soon enough, people wanted those sky plates for their own homes. So, in September 1946, just a year after World War II wrapped up, Maxon rebranded them as Stratomeals. Cool, huh? The Swansons or Jerry Thomas? The frozen meal trend took off, and before long, other small frozen food companies decided to give it a shot. Until 1952, Maxon dominated the grocery store freezer section for 6 years. However, that changed when Quaker State Foods entered the scene that year. They revolutionized the game by introducing lightweight aluminum trays with a thin aluminum lid. Following Quaker State Foods, other local companies entered the frozen food competition. Frigid Dinner, for example, expanded its frozen meal offerings, adding options like beef stew with peas and corn niblets, veal goulash, potato chunks and peas, and chicken chow mein with egg rolls and fried rice. But it all took a different turn in September 1953 when the Swansons, a very popular and well-trusted name at the time, launched their own version of the frozen prepackaged meal. Theirs was a plate with turkey, cornbread dressing, peas, and sweet potatoes. It was a game changer. But again, another story that remained on people's lips for a very long time is that of the Swansons and Jerry Thomas, their salesman. Thomas's accounts holds that he realized about 260 tons of turkey was left from the previous Thanksgiving in 1953. So while thinking about how best to use them, he stored the turkeys in refrigerated railroad cars. Then he came up with the idea to put the turkey in aluminum trays similar to the ones Pan Am was trying, along with other holiday favorites like cornbread stuffing and sweet potatoes. As a result, he was later credited as the inventor of the TV dinner and honored by the American Frozen Food Institute's Frozen Food Hall of Fame. Still, the whole debate about who really came up with the idea for prepackaged frozen meals has been going on for years, and it's only gotten more confusing over time. Was it Jerry Thomas or the Swansons who invented frozen TV dinners? According to some former Swanson employees and family members, Gilbert and Clark Swanson, not Jerry Thomas, were the brains behind the concept. Betty Cronin, who worked as Swanson's bacteriologist then, even insisted that the Swanson brothers themselves came up with the whole idea. But here's the twist. None of them actually invented it. The Swanson Company basically took Maxon's concept and Quaker State Foods' style, put it in a fancy box, and called it their own. The main reason people believed the Swanson story? Well, they were a big, successful company with a hefty marketing budget. So in reality, neither the Swanson brothers nor Jerry Thomas can claim credit for inventing frozen prepackaged meals. However, it turns out that Jerry Thomas did play a role in its success by giving it a catchy name. New name. While Thompson's cock and bull story of the leftover turkeys seemed fake, one thing we know he did for sure was give it the name TV dinners. Around this time, black and white TVs caught on like wildfire, growing over 2,000 times in the US in just 5 years after World War II. By 1955, half the households in the country had a TV, hence the birth of TV dinners. So he chose the name because TVs were a hot household commodity and he thought the dinners could piggyback off the glow. But of course, Thomas didn't navigate this journey alone. M. Crawford Pollock, Swanson's marketing guru, played a crucial role. He came up with the idea to make the TV dinner's packaging resemble a television set. And that was it. Swanson's debut Thanksgiving-themed turkey TV dinner only sold 5,000 units for 98 cents. Hold on. But in 1954, the first full year of production, they hit the jackpot, selling a whopping 10 million trays. The next year, that number soared to 25 million. And just like that, an American tradition was born. The run down the slope. Now, back in the day, the Swanson brothers were big shots with loads of cash and a famous name. Their TV dinners were like the kings of the frozen food scene, wiping out smaller brands like Maxon, Quaker State Foods, and Frigid Dinner. But guess what? In 1955, Gilbert and Clark Swanson decided to cash in, selling their TV dinner brand to Campbell's Soup Company for a ton of Campbell's stock. They held on to the rest of their business, though. Smart move. Now, most things go downhill after a big corporation takes over, but not the TV dinner. Campbell's Soup took charge and made it even better. In 1960, they added a dessert tray with goodies like apple cobbler, cherry pie, or brownies. Sweet, right? Then in 1969, they rocked the breakfast scene, giving us pancakes, scrambled eggs, sausage, bacon, and home-fried potatoes in a TV dinner tray. They called it Great Starts, and even threw in Canadian bacon and egg breakfast sandwiches. Hold on, it gets even better. In 1973, Campbell unleashed the Hungry Man. Bigger portions, cooler ads with Mean Joe Green and Rocky Bleier from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Other brands like Banquet, Morton, and Libbyland tried to step up in the 80s, but Campbell was still king, especially with Le Menu. These fancy TV dinners came with a microwavable plate and gourmet meals like pepper steak with rice pilaf, sweet and sour chicken, chicken breast Florentine with Savoy spinach, and turkey scallopine with garlic parmesan Duchess potatoes. I might not know what half those words mean, but it sounds pretty fancy and delicious for the lazy foodie. Its demise. Like the saying, eventually all good things come to an end, and that happened also to be the fate of America's finest invention. By the 90s, people started debating between fresh and frozen foods. While it's true that food is generally most nutritious when it's super fresh, frozen meals still pack a punch of vitamins and minerals. But, of course, those ready-made frozen meals often sneak in more fat, salt, and sugar than you'd get at the local farmer's market. So, even though TV dinners were hailed as the ultimate convenience food back in the day, they didn't exactly do wonders for our overall health. Eventually, brands like Stouffer's tried to jump on the health bandwagon with their lean cuisine line. Still, Campbell's couldn't quite keep up and eventually handed off the Swanson TV dinner brand to Vlasic Foods International. In 2001, Vlasic became Pinnacle Foods, and they decided to ditch the Swanson TV dinner brand altogether, opting to simply call all their frozen meals Hungry Man dishes. The Great Starts breakfast line also morphed into the Aunt Jemima breakfast line, but Aunt Jemima faced the axe after a product recall in 2017. Today, the only survivor is the Hungry Man microwavable meal, now under Conagra Brand's wing. Sure, it might not have the same thrill as Mean Joe Green tearing off freezer doors, or Steve Garvey and Tommy Lasorda chowing down on double servings of meat during a Dodgers game, but the brand still rakes in a cool $9 million annually. It's not too bad for a frozen food favorite, if you ask me.